Let's welcome to the stage, Kaity.
I'm going to start off with a really quick story that you may or may not be familiar with, thanks to Dale Carnegie. There was an experiment a while back, and a scientist put a number of fleas into a jar. Is anyone familiar with this? Yes! Okay, good. All right. A scientist put a number of fleas into a jar. Immediately upon entering the jar, the fleas jumped out of the jar. Then he put them back into the jar and put a top on. The fleas got conditioned to only jump to the top of the jar, and then they started getting conditioned to not even hit the jar because they knew they would get hurt. Then the scientist took the lid off, and all of a sudden, the fleas, when you think they could jump out, only jumped to the top of the jar because they're afraid of getting hurt. Then one little happy flea decided he was going to leave the jar. He jumped out, and once everyone saw that he could leave, all the other fleas jumped out. So I am hoping to have you guys learn how to jump out of your flea jar and get rid of the invisible lid by just simply the power of the ask. So as he said, I'm Kaity Heart. I threw my life away for rock and roll about 2007. Thank you. I've been performing professionally since I was 14 years old. I've traveled the country performing. Yes, I've worked on radio. I've done my own podcast. And I just closed down my business of 12 years, but I'll get to that later. When I first started all of these things, I was relatively terrified to ask for help, especially somebody coming out of the School of Fine Arts with absolutely no business experience whatsoever, especially not in math or taxes or P&Ls or anything that would actually help me get my business. So I didn't want to ask for help because I was really afraid that I would kind of appear weak or I'd be beholden to somebody. But holy hell, I was very, very wrong. I knew I had shortcomings. Like I said, I've come from a School of Fine Arts major. And going into something like this was absolutely terrifying. I can perform in front of thousands of people, but doing this and asking for help seemed something like out of my reach. However, I did know I was good at a couple of things. I'm pretty good at public speaking. It doesn't bother me at all. I'm really good at networking. I know a lot of people. I knew where all the best clubs were. I knew where all the best restaurants were, where everybody got their outfit and how to get it. But I didn't know how to do the very basics of running a business. So let me introduce you to the art of the trade, which I'm sure a lot of you small business owners are very aware of. Sometimes asking is hard enough, but it's a little easier when you have something to trade. So, like I said, the hardest part of business wasn't, for me, it wasn't getting customers. I had a wait list to work with me as a vocal coach. It wasn't sales. I was selling myself, so if I hated myself, I guess it would be hard. But for me, it wasn't hard. Same thing with marketing. I was very good at social media. But I would walk into these things and everybody would be dressed up in fancy suits and look really powerful. And all I had to offer them were these skills, but I had to meet all of these people first. So I started adopting this mindset, and I'm pretty sure I got this from Dale Carnegie, my God and Lord and Savior, which is everyone in the room can do something for me, and I can do something for them, and I need to figure out what that is. For me, I needed to learn what a W-9 was. I had a ton of 1099 contractors. I had no idea what a W-9 was. So I found a dude in a fancy suit. After talking to him, his business was grossing like $1 million. And I'm like, I want to start a business. I have a business now. So I started asking him questions about his business. We got in a conversation about what I wanted to do. And at the time, it was a performing arts school. I started talking to him about the back end of the business part, which I didn't know. And lo and behold, his kid wanted to get into school band. He didn't have a piano teacher. I had many piano teachers. We started talking, and before you knew it, he became my mentor, taught me how to do all the scary things that made me afraid to be in business, and I got him a teacher for his kid. We worked out, it was a trade that was great. So an easy way to ask for something that you need is to offer something in return. Every single person here has something to offer. Maybe it's a restaurant thing, maybe it's a job. I literally heard people offering jobs here. It could be anything, but think about those things and think about offering a trade when you're afraid to ask for what you need. In recent days, thanks COVID-19, and abundance for me, fantastic opportunities, I closed the doors of my business of 12 years in order to focus full-time on singing. I don't need to tell you guys that staffing became a nightmarish hellscape when I was trying to staff my business, and I just didn't have the staff. And I decided, I was like, I'm gonna make this leap into singing and performing full time. And anyone who knows the entertainment industry, it is a very hard and very scary leap because now you have no money coming in unless you actively go and get it. However, a creative with business acumen is a unicorn. I knew everything that was to know and still do and love me a spreadsheet. I know about macros now. I know all the tax things. I became an expert in government loans thanks to the EIDL and the PPP loans. And I knew what a P&L was. None of my friends knew what a P&L was. I knew what a P&L was, and it saved me many times. There are a few of us that run our bands like a business, and my bands are one of them, some of them. So I'm going to introduce you to my 1970s original rock band called Sunflower Fox and the Chicken Leg. Now you guys can absolutely laugh. That was the point. And the thinking behind this ridiculous name and the kind of the ridiculousness of the band was that we were going to be the escape. While other bands and other musicians were making huge political stands, and great for them, and religious stands and all these things, we were going to be the ones that you went to on a Friday night and had a beer with and relived the glory that was the 1970s music. It started out really small. We were all working musicians, still are working musicians. And you know, when you're gigging constantly and you're playing out 7 days a week, you're booking, you're marketing, you don't have days off. So it's really hard to write when you're in that kind of situation. So at our first recording session, which was down at Pachyderm Studios, and if you guys aren't aware, it's in Cannon Falls. It's where Nirvana recorded In Utero, live recorded there. You totally know what I'm talking about. And lots of amazing bands have recorded in the studio. After we handed off some of our raw material to some producers around town and different publicists, they were like, I think you guys should make a go at it. So trying to make a band hit now, especially when it's so saturated, is like trying to find a needle in like 10,000 haystacks. It requires an incredible amount of work, not only on the creative end, but also on the business end as well. We're very lucky to have 4 of us that have either owned a business or also currently own a business. 4 members have studios of their own, and we have a combined stage time of about 100 years of experience. But we wanted to make it into a whole different level. So think of yourself like a small business owner that has absolutely no sales, and you just straight up call up the CEO of Disney. You're like, hey, can you help me out? Well, that's literally what we did. We literally took a lot of shots in the dark, and here's how this went. We had no released music. We only had a really good idea of what we wanted and a very solid business plan. But our band adopted this, and I want you to burn this into your skulls. What's the worst that could happen? What are they going to do? Say no? Who cares? So we started making lists. We started making lists of dream producers, dream engineers, and all the albums that all these people had worked on. I'm talking about The Who, Kiss, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, Heart, PR companies that we're working with, Lady Gaga, Imagine Dragons, Duran Duran, all of our favorite people. And then through the magic of the internet and LinkedIn and emails, we tracked all of them down. We emailed a couple of the biggest PR firms in the country. 2 of them got back to us. 1 of us signed us. And they're the same people that represent Imagine Dragons and Duran Duran, and now us, which we still find hilarious. This was an absolute email out of nowhere. I ended up hitting it off with the CEO. And I'm real glad that I didn't look too much of her up because she had been on Oprah and Forbes and featured in all these things, like best-selling books, all this stuff. I would have been terrified. But I'm like, you know what? She's just a cool chick like me. Let's hang out and talk. Total shot in the dark. Now we have people on a national level that are promoting the band. In the last 2 weeks since we released our single, on the 21st. We've had I think we're at 12 articles written about us. I've done 4 radio interviews, and it just keeps happening. I had to turn my phone off for this because I can't keep up with all the requests. We emailed mixing engineers. Are you guys familiar with what a mixing engineer is? Okay, great. So he basically just takes the raw tracks, drums, bass, vocals, and puts them all together to make it sound good. And we had a massive list of big shot Grammy Award winning, Billboard charting producers, and here's literally the email. Hey man, are you taking any projects? Him. That depends, what are you doing? Us. It's a 1970s original rock band called Sunflower Fox and the Chicken Leg. Him. Let me hear your music. Then there was a phone call. The number was from Ron Nevison. Ron Nevison, for those who are unfamiliar with Ron Nevison, is a gold and platinum winning producer, the winner of multiple Producer of the Year awards. He is the man responsible for making Led Zeppelin, The Who, Ozzy Osbourne, Kiss, the Rolling Stones, Heart. Literally, it just keeps going. He was the one who launched all their careers. Here's the one that made them all sound good. And he was the one calling us. We were completely shocked. And he called us back based on an absolute cold call email that we never thought would ever see the light of day. One of the best parts of this story, and I'm going to tell you this because it's hilarious, and I like embarrassing my guitar player, especially when this goes live on what is it? What are the platforms? Amazon? Yeah, okay, here it comes. One of the best parts of this story. My guitar player, who loves him a fancy bath with like the bubbles and everything, was straight up sitting in the bath, but he didn't want to let go of his phone because we were potentially waiting for this call. Ron Nevison calls him in the middle of the bath. He gets up, standing naked with a towel, hiding his shame, talking to Ron Nevison on the phone. Meanwhile, he's trying to text the rest of the band, oh my God, Ron Nevison is calling us and says he wants to work with us. All totally naked. But God forbid we let go of our phones, right? Ron Nevison said he loved the music, he loved the idea, he loved all of it. He wanted the record. He said he would fight for the record. And we turned down another friend of mine from Nashville named Gina Johnson, who had just won 2 Grammys, who was also trying to get the record. But you can't say no to the man who made Led Zeppelin a thing. So in a month, I'm actually flying out to meet him, and he's going to produce our next record, so he's already worked on 2. And I can't honestly tell you what it means to have somebody of that level who literally worked with every single one of my heroes, physically calling me on the phone and saying, I want to work with you, off of one shot in the dark email. So what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to make the call. You don't know what's on the other end. The yes is out there. You just have to go get it. Finally, I'm going to conclude with this. Oh. Hey, you're attached to the Bluetooth, Josh. Finally, I'll conclude with this. Don't be afraid of rejection that you're going to inevitably face by doing these cold call emails or DMs or whatever, especially when you're trying to level up. There's going to be plenty of unanswered emails, phone calls, and DMs. There's going to be a whole lot of passive-aggressive ghosting from the Midwest and a whole lot of harsh, straight-up no's, are you freaking kidding me, out of the coasts. There's a reason in my industry, in the entertainment industry, that after a certain age, like the late 20s, 30s, there's a steep, steep drop-off. The rejection can become too much. The judgment can become too harsh. But it isn't the 100 emails that were ignored that matter. It's the one that said yes. You're not looking back at the 50 jobs that passed on you. You're focused on the one that said yes to you. If I honestly stopped pushing every single time I was rejected, that I was told I was too fat or too ugly to be on stage, that, yes, that's happened many times, or that my music wasn't marketable, then I would not literally be here physically talking to you after I had talked to Josh. None of that would have happened. Ask for help. Ask and return favors, because you don't want to leave this earth knowing what if. You just want to say, what's the worst that could happen? Thanks, guys.
Thank you.